A fox knows many things, but a hedgehog knows one important thing. It's one important thing. It's one important thing.
Welcome to the Morning Hedgehog podcast, where we explore the business ideas that shape your success. Here are your hosts, Ira Gardner and Glynns Thomas.
Welcome everyone to the Morning Hedgehog. We are glad to have you with us here today. And today's episode, we're going to talk about business models. So my background is more in marketing and advertising, but Ira's is in business and how to run a business. And that's what he does. He teaches. So that's why I'm leading this today. And I have lots of questions for you, Ira, to learn more about what business models are all about. Sound good?
Sounds great. Looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, so I've heard a lot about business plans, but not necessarily business models. And I would love to learn some more about that. So what is the difference between a business plan and a business model?
That's a great question because a lot of people start out thinking, I need a business plan. And you see so many articles about a business plan. And in fact, I have my original business plan from when I first started in business. And I'll tell you what the difference is primarily. A business plan is a form of external communication. It is something that is a surface level details in order to solicit investment, to go to a bank to try to get a loan, to get a business partner to join into your business. But it really is only dealing with your business at the surface level, whereas the business model is absolutely custom tailored to who you are, and it takes into consideration the elements of your income streams, the elements of your expenses, as well as your business processes. And that's probably one of the biggest areas that we want to talk about. In a business model, we not only are dealing with our business process, but we deal with the whole product development cycle. And your external business plan, those folks don't necessarily care about your product development process. They care about what is it and what are your sales projections. But the reality is, the business model goes in a lot more detail, as you'll see here in just a moment. I actually have a slide deck I'm going to share with us today to go over some of the concepts that we have with the business model.
So it sounds like, as you bring up that slideshow, it sounds like your business model should come before your business plan. Like you should understand what are the different business models out there and pick one, and then your plan comes out of that.
Absolutely. And in fact, it's much easier to develop an external business plan after you've gone through and done all the work that's associated with the business model that I'll be outlining today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right now. And so here we are. We're going to be talking about business models. To begin with, though, I love this image of Buckminster Fuller. For those of you who may not be familiar with his name, he developed the geodesic dome. And what's interesting about Buckminster Fuller is in his life story, he had a moment of supreme depression, anxiety, and was contemplating suicide, and was living in Chicago and walking on the banks of the Lake Michigan when he realized something profound. And what he realized was this. He says, the universe doesn't owe me a living. I have to do something that benefits others. And I bring this up because so many of us get into photography because it's our passion that makes us happy. But that's a hobby. And in order to transform that into a career, we have to be thinking about, how do I bring my skills and talents to bear for the benefit of others? And I love this graphic because building a business model is complex. Running a career in photography in particular is very complex. There's so many skills and so many hats that we have to wear as small business owners and entrepreneurs that the business model helps us connect the dots, make some of those really important decisions, and gives us the structure for being successful. And then I always share this one as well. I have a friend of mine that I met in my very first job when I was 16 years old. We worked at a public library together, and every year he sends me a birthday card, and he saves a comic to put on the outside envelope. And this is one of the birthday cards I received that was so appropriate for this, which is that, it's about the journey. It's not about a destination. And so when we talk about a business model, we're really talking about developing the processes that will lead us to success. And going back to this diagram here, this photograph, is recognizing that there isn't a magic silver bullet. There isn't one thing that you do that will make you successful. It's the whole combination of who you are and the processes you've put in place and the support structures you've put in place around you that will lead you to your success. Any questions so far?
It sounds complicated. But I know you're going to go into more specifics. It all makes sense, but and as I'm sure a lot of people new in business are going to be like, but okay, but what are my choices and how do I get there? Or how do I get, on this journey? Because I do feel that even the classes I took in college and some of the books get way too academic, and a lot of people just need more help in terms of, so how does this mean when you're trying to put it into actual practice?
Well, I completely empathize with you in that when you try to take the 40,000-foot view of your life and your career, it can seem a little overwhelming. And in fact, it's like standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon and being in such awe, but also having that fear of maybe falling in. And so the reason we really wanted to have this conversation today is we want to help you by simplifying and giving you some steps that you can take to just start to go on your journey towards success. We're all the heroes of our own lives. We're all the heroes of our own business, and we are all going on our own individual hero's journey. What I'm going to give you today is some small steps that will lead you towards your destination. So to help simplify what we're talking about today is my objectives are to help you define what a business model is and give you an overview of the very basic steps necessary for creating a profitable career. That's another thing that photographers, we love doing what we do. I would do it for free if I could. And unfortunately, I can't. I need to eat. I need to support my life. And so I have to be able to build a business model that's going to support me being able to help my customers and my clients with their needs. It has to be a benefit for them. So in his book, The New Thing, Michael Lewis refers to the phrase business model as a term of art. And like art itself, it's one of those things that many people feel they can recognize in their ways when they see it, but they can't quite define it. And so there's a little bit of mystery around this idea of a business model. But what's interesting about that is that the business model as a term just came into existence during the development of spreadsheet software. because with spreadsheets, we were able to put in algorithms and predict what was going to happen in the future based upon inputs. And so a big part of the business model is the ability to build a financial model using a spreadsheet, of which I'm going to be uploading a spreadsheet that is super easy for you to use. It'll give you some of the most powerful answers to your questions. And we will have a whole separate episode where I go over step by step how to use that spreadsheet. It's really, really powerful tool and really simple to use. And in fact, here's a screen capture of what this looks like, in that you're looking at, we talked a little bit about the elements of a business model. They include an income, stream, and they include expenses. And when we look at our income expenses, we're looking at our profit and loss and our balance sheet. And what the spreadsheet will do for you is it'll automate all the calculations that you don't have to worry about the big picture. You just put in, what are my expenses? What's my monthly overhead? What's my cost of goods sold percentage? And this is something I learned a long time ago. I'm not concerned about how much other photographers are charging. I'm only concerned about two things. Number one, am I maintaining the appropriate level of profitability, meaning I'm not letting my cost of goods sold get higher than 25%. In fact, the most successful photographers I know are down in that 10 to 15% cost of goods sold. So number one, I want to make sure I'm maintaining a profit margin that accommodates the cost of doing business. Number two, I'm concerned about price points. And again, I'm not concerned what other people are charging. I'm concerned about what my customers are expecting to pay at different price points. Because if I know what the price point is, I can always readjust what I'm offering for that price. Now, let's give you a quick example of that. Years and years ago, I had a portrait customer that was working at a school that said, "Hey, Ira, we would love to have you come do children's portraits at our school. Could you do that for us?" I said, "Sure, no problem." She said, "Well, I need to tell you, there's one thing you need to know. We can't have a price point over $12. I'm like, "Oh, I can't make any money doing that." But what I ended up doing is I went back to my cost of goods sold and I said, okay, well, if I am only going to have $12 of revenue, I can only spend $3 on the product. And I put together what I could offer. And I frankly thought that they would say no. And in fact, I kind of hoped they'd say no, because the thought of closing my studio and going to the school and having a reshoot day, et cetera. Making a long story short, because I kept my profitability, I ended up generating more than $200 an hour for the entire day that I was at that school. It was extremely profitable. So having this sort of financial model helps me make some really important decisions. And we'll have a whole pricing episode down the road. One of the most important questions people are always asking is, how do I set my prices? Well, guess what? Don't set your prices based upon what your competition's charging. Set it based upon your unique variables. What kind of studio do you have? Is it home-based? Is it a retail? What kind of income goals do you have? What kind of support structure or number of employees do you want to have? All those things factor into the finances that tell you without a shadow of doubt how much revenue you have to generate. And then down in this area here, you see where it automatically calculates how much revenue you have to generate per day and how that breaks down into hourly. And again, we'll have a whole separate episode on how to use this spreadsheet. On top of that, you can put together a product mix of related products. And this is that hedgehog concept coming in. Related projects, and you can anticipate what your average sale would be and what percentage of your product mix you want it to be. And the spreadsheet, the financial model, will tell you what your sales targets are. And I've since further refined this into social media marketing as well as direct mail, that how many people do you need to talk to be profitable, to achieve your goals. And so from this one financial model, I'm getting my pricing, I'm getting my marketing budget,
Mhm.
and I'm starting to develop my marketing plan. So it's and when you get this, you only have to fill in the yellow boxes. Everything else is automated.
Oh, very good. I've seen some other ones similar to this, but I like how you've incorporated the day rate and the hourly rate and the product mix, because I usually see those on separate spreadsheets. But one of the things that came to mind as you were going through this, and in my own journey, is that I think a lot of new photographers, they've spent all their time, uh, I guess, on the other side of the fence, seeing what are other people charging, and all of their experiences concern over, is it the right pricing for my customers? Here's what my customers are expecting. And I think that as you grow into your business and you learn more about business, you spend more time on that sheet, and and the more time you spend there and understanding and working there, um, I think the better business person you become, because of what you were saying, that you need to understand your price points for your customers, and you need to understand how you're going to make money. And then you start to realize you don't need to be concerned about how it's being perceived, because you're going to attract the right audience. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
Yes, and let me summarize a couple of key points of what you're talking about here. Um, Number one, when you think about price points and customer expectations, what you're really talking about is customer segmentation. And going back to our last conversation, one of the most powerful uh, one of the most powerful things I learned from working with my clients after 9/11 is I was working with a studio that was accustomed to generating over $1 million a year in annual revenue. And I was talking to the owner, and for anonymity's sake, I never share the names of these because people trust me with their information. So please understand that. But what I will tell you in the concept that makes sense, and it's one of my biggest pieces of advice, is when I was talking to the owner, I said, "So how are you doing?" He says, "I've got this obligation to take care of my employees, and so we've had to figure out how to achieve those same sales quotas, those same sales goals, but we have to do it in a new way." And so he adopted a model similar to the airlines. And so what he did is he started offering first class, business class, and coach product offerings. He changed his product mix to reflect where the customer segmentation was, just like the airlines. And so my big recommendation here is going back to the idea of look at other industries that are struggling with the same issues you have and see what successful solutions they've come up with. So the first summary is this idea of price points help me segment my customers. The second thing, which is when we come to marketing, and that's in your wheelhouse, is, and I always tell people this: you set the price points based upon where you need them to be, but now what are you going to do to be worth it? What am I going to be doing to create a amazing, as Sarah Petty talks about, a gush-worthy experience that makes it worth spending the premium that I have to charge? The spreadsheet that I showed you initially was really based upon an early career, early stage person just starting out, and you notice the hourly rate's pretty low at about $125 an hour. For me, my hourly rate's $300 an hour, but I have to do something to be worth $300. And that's the exciting thing about a business model that's different than a business plan, is that I'm now imagining my product mix and my product development based around my marketing and my branding of how am I going to create something that is worth what I need it to be successful.
That's very helpful, and that is what I was trying to say. But I'm also realizing this is super timely for everyone, not just emerging businesses, because we're in this situation with COVID-19. And I was actually listening in on a webinar earlier today with Salesforce and Mark Cuban talking about stories of resilience. And what they were talking about was that every business has always been about setbacks and successes. And so the ones that succeed are the ones that are spending less time ruminating over their losses, or, how things changed in the marketplace, or something happened, a mistake happened, whatever it is, and they just get right back in there and they start working. But they were also talking about how we're going to be entering into a new world after all this. There's good business is going to be run differently. And so this is the time to innovate. So this is the time to be looking at your business models, no matter what stage your business is and what stage of success that you're in, because I think things are going to be different. And so this is the time to be innovating and trying to predict about how customers are going to be interacting with this and what their needs are going to be. So this is actually really exciting to be re-looking, either establishing a business model for the first time or re-looking at that and seeing how our businesses are going to change and evolve.
Totally agree with you. And let me share what the current iteration, the 2020 business financial model spreadsheet looks like. I think you're going to really love it. Because I've reorganized it and I've revamped it and simplified it. You've got a color code here. The yellow is the user data entry. The pink and the green are auto entry. And what you see here is in this template that you have your sales forecast, you have your variable expense forecast, your gross profit, your expense forecast, and then your cash flow projections of what is that actually going to look like. And a business is not profitable every month of the year. There's going to be months where you're not generating enough revenue to cover your expenses. But what's exciting about this is you can see where you're profitable, see where you're not, and then you can start thinking about every dollar that I can add to those months that I'm not expecting to be a profit is really like adding pure profit, because I've already projected a loss during these months. And if I can do something special that month that draws in business that I wasn't originally planning on, that's like adding to my bottom line. It's a really powerful tool. And then we have the billable hours per week. And this gets to a really important piece of advice. We talked a couple episodes ago about mentors and valuable advice that we received. And I remember interviewing for a job at the most successful commercial photographer in our community, who he did amazing things, and he went and retired in Mexico. And he said, Ira, first of all, I'm not going to hire you because you're going to turn around and be my competition. And I see you going places. So I'm not going to hire you, but I'm going to give you some advice. And he says, when you are figuring out your pricing and your hourly rate, you need to understand that you will only be able to bill for about 16 hours of your week. The rest of your time is being spent pursuing new business and managing your business. And so when you put your hourly rate together, it's based upon my actual customer interactions, the time I'm spending. Either you only make money two places in photography. You're either doing a photo shoot for a client or you're in the sales room. And so we figure out how many vacation weeks we want a year. It automatically calculates our annual billable hours, our day rate, our hourly rate, and our annual sales necessary to be successful. And what's really great about this spreadsheet is it is in complete alignment with real world research done by PPA that looks at what are the incomes of successful retail studios in a storefront versus home-based businesses, and our figures line up perfectly with that. And then here we can go in and do a product mix of up to 5 products. I think you get beyond 5 products, you start getting distracted away from your primary mission. And so we just kind of try to focus it a little bit. And then you can experiment. I can change this number and change a percentage of business here and increase it there. And the numbers will automatically update and tell me what my conversion rate needs to be for direct mail, for email, what my monthly budget would be for advertising. And it's just I've put together templates for, here's a portrait business, here's a commercial photography business, here's a fine art business. And then on top of it, I've put together a depreciation schedule where we put in all of our equipment and how much we have and its lifespan. And we have to factor in replenishing the coffers to replace that equipment as it ages and wears out.
This is amazing.
This is what I get excited about this, because it's so empowering. When
Really
you know.
is.
So, and I've tried to make it in a very easy basically what I tried to do is create a dashboard. One screen gives me almost all the information I need. And so we will go into a lot more detail about pricing. We'll go into a lot more detail about key performance indicators. This is just kind of the get our feet wet. What is it? And a big part of a business model is the financial model that impacts our marketing, our branding. It impacts our product mix and our product development. I think it's important we start there. All right, well, let's go ahead and get back to my slide deck. And
I'm thinking about those really new into photography are going to look at that and just be completely overwhelmed. But over time, I've seen several of those now, and so I just want to encourage everyone, it's going to make sense. You just have to spend some time with it. It will definitely make sense. And as you see these different ways that people do it, you'll be able to relate to those and appreciate. I can certainly appreciate how much work went into that, and how helpful that's going to be.
thank you. We're here for you. We're going to be putting together some workshops and some Facebook private groups where we can all help each other. And I think it's important to go back to this idea that for many of us, the financial side of the business is like a foreign language. And the best way, I should say, of learning a foreign language is just to dive in and immerse yourself. And so in advertising, they talk about you have to hear a message 7 times before you'll make a decision. And if this is your first time looking at this kind of financial model and thinking about your business model, don't feel bad that it doesn't all click. It's going to take multiple times. I've been working at this for over 30 years. And I can tell you that it's not something that you should be expecting that it's just going to go, oh, that's easy. No, it is that journey that we're all on, and we just want to help you by, as I've said before, we're going to help you by giving you the set of questions that you provide the unique answers that fit you best. So here I have broken down really what the 3 key categories of a business model are. And the first one is the revenue model, where we looked at those product mix, price points, and gross profit. The expense model, where we look at our fixed expenses, which is really tied to what are my goals? What is the lifestyle that I want to lead? Do I want to work in a retail studio? Do I want to be in a home-based business? Do I want to be in a shared co-working space and travel all over the country doing freelance projects remotely? The sky's the limit. We have the ability to connect with our target market all over the world. So those fixed expenses are not really fixed expenses. They're really our dreams and our goals and our personal desires of what does our lifestyle look like, and then figuring out what do we have to do to be worth the revenue it's going to take to support that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at our cost of goods sold, which is our variable expenses that are going to be based upon the products and services we provide. What do we, for example, for me, when I'm photographing a wedding, it's kind of funny. I didn't advertise a wedding for years. And then my son, of all things, talked me into doing a wedding a couple of years ago now. And I had so much fun. I'm like, you know what? This is kind of fun. So I've been getting people soliciting and asking for weddings from me, and yet it's not something I've focused on for many, many years. But every wedding, I buy a new set of SD cards for my cameras, because that becomes one of the 3 archives I make of that event. And so that's a whole nother issue. But anyway, those are variable expenses, cost of goods sold. And then the third area, and this is what goes so much further than a business plan, is we look at our business processes. We look at our branding, our marketing, our customer relationship management. In fact, I pulled out as well, do you have a customer service manual typed up, printed out in a notebook? Is it something that you can hand off to an employee and empower that employee to be the best representative of your company to deal with customer service? Or if you don't have any employees, do you have it written so that when you're faced with the adversity of a customer complaint, that you are responding rather than reacting to that complaint? And so our customer relationship management is a set of decisions and strategies we put in place before we ever have our first customer. And then product development, our contracts, and then our key performance indicators. How do we keep score to know whether or not we're heading in the right direction? What are that might be our accounts receivable in terms of, is there enough cash flow happening? Our financial reports. It could be our social media key performance indicators of engagement and new likes and any number of things. And so every one of us needs to build this business model. It gives us a dashboard and some insight to know, are we headed in the right direction? This is a graphic that kind of visualizes what this looks like, and I will post a link. This is the Canvas business model, which is a great resource, and I'll share a link in the show notes today for us. So let's think about some traditional business models, because really what business models are, and I just heard Seth Godin do an episode about business models. Business models are the set of rules that the customer and the business owner live by. And for the business owner, it means it's the set of rules that I make decisions based upon. I decide what my service level is going to be ahead of time. It becomes the compass that guides me in every decision I make, because the most important words that every business owner needs to know is the word no. I don't do that because it doesn't fit into my model. And we talked about it before. It's very easy to get overwhelmed with all these opportunities, but we only have so much time to put into our business. And so the business model creates a set of rules for us to decide which activities are worthwhile and which ones we need to pass on. So the classic is the direct sales model, where we just sell directly from a retail location. It's a brick and mortar store type of situation. And bricks and clicks business model is something that evolved with the internet, with the idea of, okay, I have a store, but then I have an online e-commerce part of my business as well. And then we get to the classic franchise business model. And I'll just cut to the chase. We can mix and match different models to build a custom tailored business model. And so the franchise business model is what Michael Gerber recommends in the E-Myth Revisited, because the franchise means that we are planning to create a repeatable customer experience. We're going to have unified quality, repeatable experience, and you see it in chain restaurants. Fascinating statistic: the overwhelming majority of travelers, when traveling to a city or a community that they don't know, will look for a chain restaurant. Only 10% of travelers will explore local cuisine when traveling. That's why Denny's is so popular, Perkins. They even talk about the Waffle House stock market index during a tragedy. How many Waffle Houses have closed because of a crisis, right? This is because the confused mind says no, and we're looking for comfort. And so the franchise model is about creating this unified experience that you take your customer through, providing a particular quality level of product. And in fact, it involves coming up with what's called a standard service offering, and we'll talk about that in another episode. Starbucks is an example of a wildly successful franchise business model. Every Starbucks you walk into looks pretty much the same. They use a standard brand style guide and interior design guide to every one of their properties. At a higher upscale level, we get the premium or the boutique business model, which I will say most photographers are encouraged in this direction, because you'll notice the franchise requires tremendous numbers of employees, locations, and basically it's a volume business that can afford to sell products at a lower price. Well, if we're selling houses and the average home price is $300,000 a home, then as a real estate agent, I don't need to have a lot of business. I can have a smaller business because the return on that commission is high enough to sustain me. As photographers, if you look at the material cost associated with making an 8x10 print, you realize very quickly that creating a business model that's reliant on a high volume is going to limit you pretty much to more of a school photography, team sports photography business model. And so in order to be able to charge prices that are going to generate enough revenue, we are not going to be tying our pricing strictly to the material cost of photography, because photography has gotten very inexpensive. If I'm a commercial photographer, I might not even deliver a physical product. It might be just a digital file that's going on a marketing campaign on a website. So I need to be able to charge for my time, and that's the hardest thing to charge for unless I adopt a premium boutique business model, which is offering high-end products and services that are appealing to discriminating consumers. And in that case, branding is everything. And I'm sure going to be talking about that when you talk about marketing in the future. Mm-hmm. So the first book I recommend everybody read that wants to go into the premium boutique business model is Sarah Petty's Worth Every Penny. Her story is a remarkable one, leaving Fortune 500 advertising company that worked with Fortune 500 companies, worked in the ad agency world, and started a children's portrait studio business, but started it with the full knowledge of what a premium brand looks like. There are lots of different business models. Here's an incomplete list, but what's really fun is as you start watching advertisings for products, start thinking about what is the business model. For example, Netflix is a subscription business model. Many of the shave clubs are based upon a subscription model. Heck, the ink in your printer costs more than the printer per gallon. So they sell you the printer cheap, but you're on a subscription model for the ink. So every time you look at advertising, start thinking about what's that company's business model? What's their, how are they structured? And it'll start to make more sense to you. It's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. So the recommendation that I have from my over 30 years of working with photographers and doing business consulting work is that for photography, it's a combination of a luxury boutique business model that has a standardized service offering of a franchise. You get the best of both worlds. You get consistency, you get a customer that is satisfied, will be satisfied. You have the ability to scale up. We'll talk about scaling at another time, but the idea of with the franchise, I'm doing something that can be trainable, and now I can start to get the help I need so that I can lead a much more satisfying life as a creative. And so the franchise model gives me stability, consistency, high quality standards. It makes it teachable and trainable. And then we add the luxury qualities to our business that make it something highly desirable. And we are able to charge a premium price for it.
Love it.
All right, let's move on. We've got a little bit further to go today. One of the things about luxury brands I want to encourage us, and right now this is a very appropriate thing to remember us. Luxury brands thrive during a recession. When people tighten their budgets, they are more likely to invest in something that they see as high value and high quality and very lasting. And so this actually is a really good time to focus on developing a luxury brand in your career. Here's some logos, and when we get to branding and marketing, we'll be able to talk about the subconscious impact of brand archetypes and how that gets portrayed in typefaces and line quality. But you can just kind of get a sense for these are companies that have stayed with it through thick and thin and will continue to be there in the future. And luxury brands does not mean always the most expensive. There are different levels of luxury, and we get to choose that. And I love this pyramid because it reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of human emotion, human needs, and this is kind of the top of the pyramid of self-actualization. Marcus Lemonis, if any of you have watched the, I forget, his show is called The Prophet, and he owns RV World, and he's a turnaround specialist with businesses, and he always talks about business is about people, process, and product, and this is our career, and we need a business model that addresses all three of these areas. You have your expertise, you have your customer service and your business processes, and then you have your art commoditized, and we're photographers, we're artists. Any kind of photography we do is an art form. It's commercial art, but you know what? Da Vinci and all those great masters, they all had patrons. They were doing commercial work. It was on commission. And so this is the business model canvas we looked at earlier. And I think we'll stop there, actually. What questions do you have so far about business models?
I think you've answered most of them. I'm just going to look at my list here. I was going to say I see so many photographers doing lots of different types of photography, and they seem to be successful. But I think you've sort of answered that in terms of, you know, a model's just going to help you get there faster. And well, you know, how somebody looks doesn't necessarily mean that they're successful. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy with how their business is running. So I love the fact that, you know, I always thought that business models, you just chose one and you went with it. But I love how you went through how you can create hybrid versions. You can pick and choose and create a combination that makes sense for you.
Well, let me just, let's talk about how do we define success? And I think one of the most important parts of this business model is you're defining success a number of ways. Number one, you are pre-visualizing what kind of lifestyle do you want to lead? And that's going to vary for different people. Success is not defined by a certain dollar amount of income. Success is really defined by an overall happiness and a sense of fulfillment and purpose in our life. And what do we have in our life that supports us being able to achieve that? And I remember I had the unique opportunity of meeting and interviewing Arnold Newman. And if anybody looks at Arnold, in fact, you can find my video interview I did of Arnold Newman. He was considered the father of environmental portraiture, where he photographed for Life magazine, and he was the only Life magazine photographer that maintained full copyright ownership of every image he made. And he was amazing. In our conversation, he talks about the fact that you don't define success by money. Money is a consequence of your success, not the other way around. and that he photographed everybody the same. He wanted to make everybody, he wanted to make a photo that said something valuable about that person. And it didn't matter whether he was photographing a janitor sweeping the street or he was photographing a president or royalty. And so for him, a very important part of it is recognizing that your financial success is tied to your mission fulfillment and your purpose. And so for me, my success has been defined by, am I happy, and am I able to understand what my mission is? And this podcast is a big part of my mission. Is I want to help people be successful and find their purpose in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is so easy to just be focusing on the money. Um, and am I bringing in what I want to bring in? But I think absolutely you have to be making sure that you are happy with what you are doing. And for me, that means I'm creating a certain type of art, and that I'm attracting people who appreciate that art and are happy, and then I'm serving those people who appreciate that. That makes me super happy. So as long as I can focus on that, then I hope through that success that I continue to make good money. Let me see what else I had here.
Well, can I skip us
Yeah.
ahead to tell people where we're going over the next, I imagine it's going to take us 6 months to a year to really get into all these areas easily.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like painting the Golden Gate Bridge, in that you start at one end, and by the time you get to the other end, it's time to do it again. And I think that's what business models are really about, because we are complex human beings. We change. We have different factors in our life, different life cycles, if you will. But I'm going to just share with you what I have summarized as being the 8 steps that we all have to go through. This is our hero's journey of business success.
And that hero's journey comes from that awesome book, Building a Story Brand. For those of you who haven't read that yet, read it. It's great.
And even before that, it comes from Joseph Campbell, who,
Right.
if you're a Star Wars fan,
Yes.
and even before that, it comes from Carl Jung and the idea of the subconscious. And it's just such a powerful, and I love people like Donald Miller that are really bringing that into our day-to-day life on a regular basis. So I have come up with over 30 years of research and working with studios and working with my own businesses, 8 steps that we can all take towards our success, our life goals, if you will. And that's where our business is an important part of our life. And in fact, it is where we spend the majority of our waking hours, to be honest with you. So our first step is going to be talking about a vision statement where we set those lifestyle goals. We look at our resume of life experiences and draw upon what are the strengths, what are my unique skill sets I've developed over time. I'm going to develop my market position, where I want to be in the market. And I'm going to really explore and discover who I am at my core values and what is my purpose and intention. And then we're going to develop that into a mission statement. And we'll, successful businesses all have a strong mission statement that goes back to Buckminster Fuller. This is what we're here to do for others. And so you're going to find your why. You're going to find why the universe needs your work, define your purpose, and it's going to create a compass and a barometer to measure every decision by, so that we're not pulling ourselves away from our success by taking on distractions. Opportunity, there's always opportunity, but you can't pursue them all. And so we need to get that purpose and direction that you talked about so well in our last episode. And then step 3 is to build that business model, which is what we looked at today. And we can do a SWOT analysis. We can set up our chart of accounts, and we'll talk about that. Start understanding the key performance indicators and looking at our financial reports, our sales funnel and building your team and finding a mentor. And so then we get to, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move where you are on the screen here. I
I'm
can't
doing the
move
same
it. There we
thing.
go. And so then we get to building your brand. And what I get excited about branding is that brands operate on the subconscious level. And so we are able to elicit a reaction, a response that draws our target market to us through all these nonverbal cues that we create visually through our branding and through our messaging. And so that's a really exciting step. And then I actually believe we need to develop our brand before we develop products, because we need to know who our customer is and what do they need. And so then we'll go into product development, and then we develop the processes that will ensure the consistent quality and the consistent customer unique experience of that brand, and how we're going to plan out how we're going to surprise them and how we're going to over deliver to our customers so that they refer us to other people that they know. And then the difference between branding and marketing and advertising is the branding has to come first, and then we design all the marketing and advertising for the external communication to the world, saying we're here, we're ready for you. And that's a whole, we could spend a year on that. And then finally, it's about putting all of it into practice and execution. And one of the things we do is we build an activity calendar, and we build our work week so that we know when we're taking time to do each of these things. And so as we come to the end of this, I want to encourage everybody to, I want to reiterate the less is more theme, and I want to tell you that taking time to get away, now we're in this shelter in place right now, but as soon as it's over, take that time to get away from your business, get away from your home, and give yourself a retreat to go take that 40,000 foot view of your life, so that you can set those goals, and so that you can start to build this business model. And I will tell you that in my career, my greatest success has always come when I found the time to get out of town every 4 to 6 weeks, because I just come back completely refreshed, re-energized, and when I'm away, I come back with a fresh set of eyes to see what am I doing right and what needs to be fixed and what needs to be changed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what do you think? Does it seem like a reasonable number of steps?
Yes, it's overwhelming, to be honest, but that the fact that we're going to go through these piece by piece, I'm actually really excited. I mean, I see areas that I'm already doing, but I also see some areas in here that I've not been focusing on. So personally, I'm pretty excited to go through this piece by piece and see where I can be improving my business, and then absolutely helping everybody out there watching improve their business too.
Well, I'm excited. I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're doing this. And I just can't wait to see where it comes. And please send us your questions, send us your comments. Take a look at our website. We'll add more information to the show notes. We'll add resources. You can download my spreadsheet. And we just really look forward to growing this with you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Hedgehog podcast. For show notes or to submit a question or comment, please visit www.themorninghedgehog.com.